All right, hello. We are doing our first lecture for distance learning, and this is going to be associated with our Unit 3 chapter, our Unit 3 chapters, and these are going to be your daily lectures that go with each chapter. So we're going to start by going over a couple things. One, I want you guys to remember that in terms of finding the chapters, Media Studies 101 PDF, this is your actual hard copy of your textbook. If you go to the website, you may not completely understand how to navigate the hyperlinks, so I don't want you to get lost in that. But when you're looking at where do you find your chapters to read, this is where you're at, and you're going to scroll down till you get to Unit 3, which is page 74, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see if I can just type in 74 right here and get us where I need us to be. Yes. So today's chapter is going to be on political economies. It's very brief. It's really just that one page / paragraph right there. I scrolled too far now. Yeah. That's chapter 27. I'm sorry. So this is going to be all of chapter 26. We're just going to, for today, introduce the idea of political economies. In particular, today's chapter is going to provide you with a basis of definitely something that I want you guys to consider for your Unit 3 projects on production and structure. If you haven't addressed what I'm getting ready to talk about today in your project, you definitely want to go back and add that in. So I'm going to go to your notes PowerPoint right here. So again, when we go into our class page, after you've read the chapter, you're gonna want to go back here, go to Unit 3, click on the notes link, and it'll pull up this PowerPoint. So Unit 3 production structure. Again, I'm gonna post your video lectures here as well as here today. And I'm gonna add this video link. So this is where you'll go now, and we're just going to jump right on in and get started talking. So the words that you need to define for chapter 26, signs and symbols, we've already went over this semester. You should have those from previous chapters. Technologies, I think, is going to be a new one. Again, guys, keep in mind when you're doing these definitions, you want to think about how they refer to the media and mass media and different forms and types of media and media communication, okay? So don't just Google technology and tell me a computer and a cell phone's a piece of technology. I know that. How in the scope of media does the definition and the application of technology change? Cultural traditions and heritage are definitely going to be new. I want you guys to discuss those, and again, think about how cultural traditions and heritage come to light in media. How does the media treat cultural traditions? How does the media treat heritage? And those two ideas and concepts, how do they impact the world that we live in? Political economy is what the chapter is going to be about. I am going to define that one a little bit for you on the next slide. But again, politics and economy here, guys, be careful of getting too modern with your definition and too focused on the wrong scope and the wrong lens. Okay, keep in mind we're focusing on media here. Distribution, consumption, we've already discussed this semester. So just go back to, I don't remember what chapter it is. I feel like this was somewhere in Unit 1. But if you'll just go through your previous units of vocabs, you'll definitely find those and be able to just copy those definitions and pull them forward. I do still expect them to be written out. And then last, we have neutral and entangled. Pretty straightforward definitions. What you get should apply. But today we're going to talk about how neutral and entangled loop into media studies. All right, and so your two discussion questions today, once we finish, you're going to want to answer what is a political economy? And question 2, can you identify any specific examples of the impacts of a political economy, okay? For you guys, I want you, the specific example I want you to explore is your adaptation. That way everybody has something different that they're looking at. After we discuss political economy today, I want you guys to tell me how political economy applied to your compare and contrast of your film adaptations. Okay? And this is what you're going to reincorporate into your projects. Sorry guys, Jack's barking in the background if you can hear him in this video. So chapter 26 on political economies. Here are your notes. Political economy is going to be an approach to studying media whose focus is attenuated towards the ways in which media is produced, distributed, and consumed, rather than on analyzing the interpretations of the signs and symbols found within the text. So let's talk about the Lion King adaptation we watched the other week in class. How is this produced? And when we talk about how it was produced, mainly what I want to focus on is the decision to go from animation to live action, okay? Think about how much the technology has changed that allowed us to do something like this. 1994, nobody would have dared try to do something this risky as far as a film goes, because it would have been very challenging to do with the limitations of technology and what we had access to. So a big thing there in production between the 94 and 2019 adaptations of The Lion King is how it was produced. Look at the logistics, look at all of the teamwork that had to go into it, look at all of the different roles that were added behind the scenes as far as making this particular film or making the two different films. Distribution. This is big with Disney, especially in distribution and political economy. When I was growing up, the way Disney worked, and largely they still work like this, but they're getting a little lax on this policy, they had what they called movies going into the vault. And what this meant was when a movie was produced and it was distributed, it went to the movie theaters, it went to VHS copies. This was before DVDs. But even when it went to DVD copies, after so long, they took every copy off the shelf. Walmart, Target, any place that sold videos and DVDs, as far as being a legitimate corporation, was instructed that on a particular day you had to take all these copies of The Lion King down. All the animated copies came off the shelves, and they put it in the vault. So what that meant was, for a period of time, I want to say it was close to, it had to probably be close to 20 years. When a movie would go into the vault, Disney would say, all right, for the next 20 years, you can't buy this from someone that we have authorized to sell it. Now, you could, of course, find them at thrift shops, garage sales. You could probably find it by a third-party seller on Amazon or eBay. But Amazon itself and eBay, like as a corporation, couldn't legally authorize the sale of this particular movie. So in terms of distribution, Disney had a lock on it as far as when this movie was allowed to go out and for how long people were allowed to buy it. This was huge. This was a really big deal. It made these movies that Disney filmed kind of hot ticket items, collectible commodities. And the political economy of that has shifted because now we have Disney Plus, and all of these items that were in the vault for so long, they're now just available. Stream it when you want to. Here's your subscription, pay your $7.99 a month, and you can watch everything that they've given you access to watch. So they still got limits on what they put out. A lot of like their TV shows from the Disney Channel original days, they haven't made all of those back out to the public yet. And I'll tell you why in a second when we get to the next part of this, but distribution's changed largely for Disney. Disney's gone virtual. And so with this live streaming system that they've got, their distribution looks very different than it did 20, 30 years ago. And then the last one is how media is consumed. And again, we're talking about the difference between going to the movie theaters and sitting at home and watching something on a VHS tape versus having that digital streaming service now of Disney Plus. Right now, the big thing is, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but a lot of like Disney and Pixar, and some of these other big movie brands and big movie companies, that these producers that are putting these movies out are saying, you know what, skip the movie theater, go straight to the live streaming service. Um, Disney's was, I think it was a movie called Onward. It kind of looks like a Trolls kind of vibe movie. But they're skipping the movie theater, and I think Black Widow is going to eventually do the same thing. From what I've been reading, some of the rumors or whatever, um, they're skipping the movie theater because that's not how audiences are going to consume this movie. For us right now, it's because of the pandemic and the corona COVID-19 virus, and the limited access we have to movie theaters and how much they're shutting things down and whatnot. Um, and so that's how people are consuming it. These people, today's audiences are not going to consume movies at the movie theater. It's just not the hot ticket. It's not the thing to do that it was 20 and 30 years ago. It used to be a very big deal about getting out and going to the movie theaters. And political economy is the study of all those things. So from production to distribution to consumption, The Lion King alone is one really great example. And I want you guys to consider political economy in all of your film adaptations. How are the two adaptations different in production? How was the distribution of the two adaptations different? And how was the consumption of the two adaptations different? Please, please, please go back and add that to your projects if you haven't already done so. So moving along, media texts then are produced within a specific historically contingent system, which are not merely an ideologically neutral form of exchange, but are conditioned and a range of complex interactions. So again, media texts, movies, video games, TV shows, news outlets, music. Every time this stuff comes out, when something comes out and it's a part of the media, it is a direct reflection of that particular time period, whatever's going on in the world. And it's set in that particular part of history. And anytime you try to pull it out of that particular part of history and apply it somewhere else, it may not fit exactly the way that it did when it was originally published. And that's just because of how much the world changes. You see this again, the 1994 Lion King adaptation, um, and the animated film versus the 2019 version. Look at how those two movies were different. And we talked about this a little bit in class. But a big thing with the Lion King adaptations as media text and how they're set in their historical like systems is back in 1994. We didn't pay a lot of attention to the voice actors. We just wanted somebody who was popular, who was going to fill that role. That's what pushed your movie because you weren't going to see them on screen anyway. Versus 2019 came around and we wanted it to be really authentic. We wanted to be really true to the history of a film like this. And so we changed a lot of our voice actors. And while, yes, we kind of focused on, we wanted popular voices so that we could gain some traction with our audience, we also realized that there was a certain importance to being authentic, being true, and being historically accurate. And so we see a lot of that come up in that particular film adaptation. We've seen a lot of increase with feminine roles and women voices and women voice actors. Look at how much Shenzi the hyena, Sarabi, and Nala, look at how much their lines increase between the two adaptations. And again, that's a product of 2019 female activism. Um, so then lastly, PE focuses that politics and economics are not separate entities, but they're best understood as being entangled, meaning they are functionally inseparable. Um, so when you guys talk about political economy and we talk about politics, I want to point out here that when we refer to politics over the course of the unit coming up, I want you to think of politics in terms of the academic study of government and state. While yes, this is going to somewhat rely on your knowledge of political parties, I don't want you to get so caught up in the modern, this is politics, this is how politics as we know it. I just want you to take a step back, and this is the study of how the government and the state functions, how the common class, if that's how you want to phrase it, is governed by a ruling class. And that system of rules and laws, checks and balances, the people and the power kind of deal. And then economics, of course, the money behind all of this. So when you put those two together and understanding that they don't function separately when we talk about media and we talk about media text, they are together and they're just tangled up and it gets complicated and messy. Understanding this entanglement is going to be pivotal to understanding the way that any society and culture is going to work. And so this goes for us here in America, this goes for other nations, other countries, and understanding their media text and understanding how their media texts are going to be impacted by this political economy. Okay. So that's going to be it for today as far as notes are concerned. Like I said, the big thing I want to pull up today is political economy and making sure that you have the analysis of political economy between your two adaptations in your final product that you do for your Unit 3 project. Okay. So these are your notes. Make sure that you go back and define these terms, answer these questions. Now you should know what is a political economy, and now you should be able to tell me, identify specific examples and impacts of political economy in your film adaptation project. All right? Got any questions? Please let me know, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.